Welcome back to another We Wonder. I'm Chris Pfluger. I'm your host here. I am the Chief Development Officer here at We Insure. And today we have a very interesting topic. It is jewelry and the insurance thereof. And so I'm going to start off. Our guest today is Manny Serrato. He's with Jewelers Mutual Group. How are you?
Doing well, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Before we start, I'm going to start off with some did you know facts. So, Manny, hang on for this. So, as we know, 50% of those people making a major jewelry purchase have no insurance at all. So, you might be buying a Rolex or a new anniversary ring or something along those lines. Zero coverage for 50% of the folks out there. And another interesting fact is only 10% of those who do have an individual standalone policy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today and how important that really is and what differs between maybe doing a jewelry rider from your homeowner's policy and how that affects everything versus having a great standalone policy, the coverages, the breadth, the depth of those coverages, and the minimums and maximums. We're going to go through all of it today. But it's significant because we are before another major holiday that is a huge jewelry purchase holiday for most of us, which is Valentine's Day. So this will be the exact right time for those of us out there that are looking to buy something for their spouse or hoping their spouse buys something for them, whichever happens, and make sure you have the appropriate coverage thereof. So if you don't mind, Manny, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Jewelers Mutual.
Yeah. Again, thanks so much for having me, Chris. So at Jewelers Mutual here, I am a program relationship manager. Now, our company here, we started out back in 1913, founded by jewelers for jewelers. So jewelers in need of coverage, basically took matters into their own hands and started this amazing company out. One really amazing thing about us is that we still work very closely with the jewelry industry, which is, very unique to us in the insurance industry as well. Now, jewelry is the only thing we've ever insured, so you can definitely say we're as obsessed with the customer's jewelry as they are. And to that end, we did start working with personal jewelry specifically back in 1953. We offer broader coverage than what may be available on a homeowner's, renters, or condo policy with competitive rates and less coverage restrictions. So kind of like what you mentioned before here regarding homeowners coverage, there's a lot of limitations that you could potentially see on a homeowner's policy where we could definitely help fill those gaps.
So now, let's talk about that for a second, since you brought that up on the limitations. So I know I've had this discussion. Full disclosure, I have a Jewelers Mutual policy. So one of the questions that comes up is what differs? Like if some of the minimums, the maximum payouts, some of the coverage themselves differs widely from an additional piece from your homeowner's policy versus a standalone policy. So tell us a little bit about that just real quick.
Yeah. So, some of the more major coverages that you could potentially see missing from a homeowner's policy are coverages for disappearance, as well as breakage. So between those two types of losses with jewelry specifically, you would often find that most homeowners policies may not cover that. And so that's something that we do help to pick up, just because, again, what you would find more commonly are broken prongs, a broken band, cracked band, on the occasion that somebody's washing dishes, for example, ring falls off or slips off the sink there and down the drain and unable to retrieve that. Those types of losses, are something that we would commonly see that we could potentially see excluded on a homeowner's policy.
And the other piece there I think is very important to mention is that if you file a claim on your homeowner's policy, it affects your homeowner's policy.
Yes. Yeah. And that's huge, because what we find is that that could have not only an adverse effect on the premium on the home, for a potentially, a few $1,000 ring, as well as a potential adverse effect on the underwriting side. Somebody could potentially be denied coverage in the future for having that type of claim on their record. So, we really like to offer that as a value in terms of helping to insulate that policy, not just for the customer, but also helping agents out on that front in providing that additional insulation for their core business.
So you've touched on it a little bit, but the question comes up, who's your primary customer, right? I know you worked with jewelers and you probably work at shows and jewelry shops and those kind of things, but who's your primary customer out there? Because obviously at We Insure, we offer Jewelers Mutual. And so, we have a lot of our clients. We want to make sure that they're being asked every single time, hey, if you have special jewelry, you want a particular, coverage, we'll take care of it separately. But the question is, who is your primary customer out there?
Well, I know the assumption, kind of like what you were alluding to there, is that we mainly insure high value items for affluent customers, and that really only affluent customers have a need to work with us. The fact of the matter with that, Chris, is that we have a solution for almost everyone. In fact, one of our most popular subsects of customers is the younger 25 to 35-year-olds who are just getting engaged. We're proud to be able to offer solutions for them, as well as for the 55-year-old jewelry enthusiast and collector, and then just about everyone else in between.
Fantastic. So there's really no minimum or maximum necessarily. It's just there's a broad range, and if you feel like you'd like to get it covered, and again, the dollar amount is not significant, right? So it's significant to you. It might be $1,000 there, or it might be $100,000, but the actual premiums adjust accordingly. So it's not terribly overly expensive to actually get that coverage.
Correct. And that's, you hit on a critical piece for us here, is that, yes, we do not have a maximum value per item limitation. So that's huge. And, obviously wanting to expand our appetite for, the types of jewelry that we accept, and, focusing specifically on jewelry. So, everything from wedding bands, bracelets, watches obviously are huge, smart watches, things of that nature. Now, to that point, I definitely think it's worth noting that there are some more specific type of items that wouldn't be considered jewelry that we unfortunately do not cover at this time. Things like gold bullions, occasional question for dog jewelry or tiaras, things of that nature. We unfortunately don't cover, but again, all your typical everyday wearable jewelry, we would definitely be the people for you.
Great. So my tiara's out.
Unfortunately, Chris.
The gold bars are out. Okay, I got that. So you cover everything, if I'm getting this correct. So if LeBron James has, all of his rings from the championship, they want to get covered, he could contact you, but also I could contact you. I have like an anklet or something I gave to my wife or something along those lines. I certainly can get that covered as well.
100%.
Okay. And so one of the things, and again, the takeaway that we had before, and we haven't done with this, but one of the takeaways that you had before, I think this is where really becomes relevant, right? Is I may not have a $50,000 one-piece item, but over the years between Valentine's Day, birthdays, holidays, those type of things, whatever it might be with my spouse and myself, I may have collected a bunch of smaller items. How does that work with you guys?
Well, just like what we were discussing before in terms of limitations for values for items, we also don't have a limitation to the number of items on a policy. So, in terms of the policies that I've had the pleasure of looking at, I've seen obviously as low as one item up to 60 items on one policy. And that's really, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's really one of those things that we feel is often overlooked. Most people don't really realize what they accumulate over the years, and then obviously the value that jewelry holds, and what it would cost them to replace all of that should they lose that all at once. So, to that point, definitely something that we want to get people thinking about and considering, in terms of making sure they're properly covered.
Wow. So you're talking theft, breakage. So if I have, my wife has a diamond, wedding ring, and all of a sudden the prong broke off and the diamond fell off, we might still have the band, but no diamond. So those type of things are covered. Pretty much everything.
Yes.
Other than earpods and tiaras, dog jewelry, completely out. Got it. All right. So we've got that. So I guess the next question is, where do you cover all 50 states?
Yeah, we do extend our coverage to all 50 states. Notably, our two biggest states at this time, in terms of how many policies are held there, are Florida and Texas. So we definitely do great by those customers across all 50 states. But right now specifically, it seems that those two states are the ones taking advantage most of our coverage.
The big jewelry states, the Florida, Texas, got it. California has to be in there too somewhere, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, they're definitely up there as well.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, we work with you very closely, obviously. So our agents, when you have a We Insure agent, and we're doing our national expansion, still in the campaign, we're looking at 27 states now, which includes most of the states you've already mentioned. And so we work with you guys very closely. So if you're working with a We Insure agent in any of the states that we're in, we'd love you to consider, Jewelers Mutual for your insurance needs for your jewelry. And again, as you know, It's not just one big item. It could be a combination of smaller items you've accumulated over the years. And again, it's absolutely well worth it. Don't put that necessarily as a rider on a policy. Get your stuff covered. So, Manny, I tell you what, this has been very informative. Any other last minute takeaways for the folks out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit to consider here, and just a few pieces to highlight about the value that we can provide, not just on the insurance side, but also again into the jewelry industry as a whole. We recently, as of November of this past year, got our 35th consecutive A+ superior rating through AM Best. And as you know, Chris, insurance is not much more than a piece of paper and a promise to pay in the event of a loss. So that financial strength is one of the biggest indicators that we do stand behind our claims and our customers when they suffer those losses. Our policies run as low as 1% to 2% of the items of value. So, which I know is one thing that usually surprises the general public when they find that out, just because I think there's that misconception that jewelry is super expensive. It is not the case. 1% to 2% is what we see most of the time. We cover, again, everything from loss, disappearance, and accidental breakage, which may not be included on the home, with a deductible as low as $0. I don't think we can highlight that piece enough, in that we make that very easy on the customer, not just, again, with the peace of mind, but also make it easy for them to turn a claim around. And then looking at it for agents, about 90% of the policies that we accept do process straight through with no underwriting. And our quick quote and user-friendly agent portal, Jewelers Mutual Partner Gateway, is available to them to use to make that sales process incredibly easy.
Wow, Manny, I tell you what, this has been great. Just learning more about how it works in the back end, and the fact that, such a vast majority of the people do not have coverage. They lose a very valuable item, and then they have to go out and save up and buy another because they just didn't have the coverage. So don't leave yourself in that particular position. Definitely, we like to say we work with the best here at We Insure. And again, we sincerely appreciate you joining today, talking more about jewelry, more about Jewelers Mutual. And again, I think everybody found it tremendously informative. So appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us here at We Wonder.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Chris.
You got it.